Hello. Welcome to The Revealing. I'm your host, Pavarotti, here to discuss the Idaho 4 case. As a disclaimer, this channel is for entertainment purposes. These are my opinions, and I'm not here to slander anyone, but with all that being said, let's just go ahead and get started, shall we? Today I want to discuss the Hyundai Elantra. Now in this case, we've already pretty much determined that the investigation and the PCA are essentially farces. I mean, the PCA is clearly a parallel investigation done in reverse, even admitted to now in court by Brett Payne that when he said on December 20th, that's when they had the discussion with the WSU officer that found the Elantra. Everything else in this PCA went out the window. That's why they're saying it's irrelevant, because that is not what the PCA stated. The PCA clearly listed in an order that on November 29th, that's when they got on to Kohberger, and all the dominoes fell after that. Once he got on the stand in court and contradicted himself and said it was the 20th, then his PCA is gone. So it led me to believe what other things in this PCA were either poorly investigated, reverse investigated, or probably weren't even investigated. Maybe it was even, things that were considerable jumps. Let's just put them in there and let's do that jump. We'll jump from this to this, even though it doesn't really make sense. We'll try to make it make sense with a lot of our experience and our training and experience. We'll say something ridiculous and then we'll back it up with our training and experience tells us, and we'll write a whole paragraph about, our opinions. That's the PCA. With that being said, got to look closer into that Hyundai Elantra sighting at the house. Now, when did we learn about that Hyundai Elantra? Was it the day after the atrocity? Because we know that through testimony of Detective Mowry now in court and Detective Payne, a video canvas was done of all of the videos in the neighborhood, in the surrounding area immediately after the atrocity. Now go watch an episode of First 48. Watch what those detectives do. Any video footage, they get them back to the office, they start watching it immediately. Okay, so if there was immediate examples of this Hyundai Elantra that stood out from all those other vehicles that had driven through that neighborhood, they would have noticed it the next day. When did they put out all this information, though, on this Hyundai Elantra? Let's look back at a news release.
College students last month. Investigators now asking for the public's help, finding a particular person or people, releasing generic photos of a 2011 to 2013 white Hyundai Elantra with an unknown license plate, saying it was in the vicinity of the home that tragic morning of November 13th. Telling us this afternoon.
Thanks to these tips and leads, we know that vehicle was there. So the occupant naturally is someone we want to talk to. They might have critical information that can help us solve the case.
Investigators saying it is to protect the integrity of the investigation that they have not released information on a suspect, a potential motive, or whether they've located the murder weapon, which they believe to be a knife.
The tip line is now going to an FBI call center. That's so they can handle all the volume of tips and also categorize them and help us.
What they have released is that all four students, Kaylee, Madison, Xana, and Ethan, turned home after a night out at different locations.
The exact date on that news release, but did you notice how they said last month, the atrocity that happened last month? So this was sometime in December. Okay, this is probably when they first started piecing in this Hyundai Elantra scenario into their PCA. So let's look at the PCA. Let's dissect it one more time in a different way this time. Let's dissect it with a map and see if it holds any water, shall we? Okay, so here we are on the original Brett Payne PCA. Well, let's go back to this Elantra again. Because if we read here, it says suspect vehicle 1 was observed traveling westbound in the 700 block of Indian Hills Drive in Moscow at approximately 3:26 a.m. and westbound on Steiner Avenue at Idaho State Highway 95 in Moscow at approximately 3:28 a.m. On this video, the Steiner Avenue video, it appears suspect vehicle 1 was not displaying a front license plate. So let's take a look at this little pathway that he took. As you can see, it starts down here with this little circle you'll see down there to the right. Okay, that's Indian Hills. Now, as he drives along that road, it will turn in up here to Steiner Avenue. So it says he continued westbound, so it means he took a left. And if you take Steiner Avenue, it'll turn into, I believe it's Lauder Avenue at this intersection of the highway right here, and he continued on to the King Road residence. So, a review of footage from multiple videos obtained from the King Road neighborhood showed multiple sightings of suspect vehicle 1 starting at 3:29 a.m. So that means directly from Steiner, he was going into the residence around King Road. And it ended around 4:20. But these sightings show suspect vehicle 1 make an initial 3 passes by the 1122 King Road residence and then leave via Walenta Drive. This is the part I want to focus in on. Because when they say he made an initial 3 passes and then he left via Walenta Drive, what they're saying is he drove past the residence 3 times and then left out. Let's take a look at see if is that even possible. Because as we go down here, this is the road, and you can see Taylor Avenue. You'll have to follow along with me here because it won't let my cursor do it. But let's take the red line. We'll start all the way to the right. And you can see he would have followed along Taylor Road all the way until he got to King Road. Then he'd made a left. He came down King Road, and then he would have made another left, which would have driven past what they're calling the King Road residence. You can see that residence is actually located on a little Queen Road loop. But he would have driven past it, staying with the red line, and that would be pass number 1. Okay, now you can see I've turned that red line into a green line for pass number 2. So he would have turned around, and he would have driven back by the house, of course, on that Queen Road. And that would have been pass number 2 is that green line. So then he would have, let's say, made a right on King, made a right back on Taylor. Well, that's just speculation, but let's say he would have turned around again on Taylor, and that's when you see the yellow line. This will represent the 3rd pass. So if he turned around on Taylor, came back down King, and got back on Queen, and he made that 3rd pass past the King Road house, well, how the heck does he get over there to Walenta Drive? Now you'll see to the left of Taylor, Taylor turns into Walenta. So on that 3rd pass past the house, though, he would be stuck in that neighborhood. He wouldn't be able to get out. There's no way to get over to Linda Lane and drive up and go back around to Taylor to Walenta. So right there in the PCA, it's absolutely impossible for him to have made 3 passes past this house and not be stuck in the apartments to the right of the King Road residence, because if he would have turned around and came back, he would have made 4 passes. So how much effort has really been put into this PCA, into this part of the investigation? Again, I believe that what we're looking at here is a parallel investigation looked at in reverse, trying to make something stick against a white Elantra, when clearly these are people driving in past this King Road house. Probably the first 2 passes were a car looking for some place to park and couldn't find it. And then the 3rd pass was just a car driving in and finding a parking space. May have been the same car all 3 times, and then they finally found a parking space and parked. Doubt it had anything to do with the actual crime itself. Yeah, so I don't think the Hyundai Elantra aspect of this thing was ever a major aspect of this case. I certainly don't believe it dictates the time the atrocity occurred. So that leaves a lot open for interpretation. Now, I just released the video that was my members only video. And folks, I did have to revise it down quite a bit. A lot of the really, let's say, sensitive information I did have to leave out. Now, for those of you out there that are members, though, that would like to fill in the non-members into what information was left out in the comment section on this video or that video, feel free to do so. As long as it's you spilling the beans on everything and not me just blasting it out to the public, I don't have a problem with it. I want everybody to know. I just don't want the messenger to be, held into account for my investigation. Because you know what? I'm not, assigned to this investigation really. So when I've gone through and picked fly shit out of black pepper, there could be repercussions for old Pavarotti. And I've been considering those here lately. But I still want the truth to get out because dadgummit, it needs to get out, and I've worked so hard on this thing. But next, I'm going to be working on the actual atrocity itself. And I needed to do this video because I don't believe the Elantra even had a role whatsoever now in the atrocity. And as new evidence comes to light, you can't ignore it. So the next video that I'm working on is the atrocity itself, and I'm going to show you how I believe this thing actually went down. And I think you're going to agree with me. But post your thoughts, post your comments, your criticisms. Until next time, Pavarotti's out.